In the village of Ugboke, where baobab trees shaded red clay huts and ancestral whispers traveled with the wind, there lived a woman named Mama Ede. Her cooking was more than substance, it was ritual. It was said that her stew could soothe fevers better than any herbalist's brew, and her jollof rice could lift grief off a widow's back. Children licked their fingers in silence after tasting her palm oil soup, and even the elders, stiff with pride, admitted she seasoned like the spirits themselves have taught her. But Mama Ede had a rule, one that no one dared to question. She never cooked after sunset. It wasn't a mere quirk or superstition, it was law in her compound. If a traveler came hungry after the sun dipped below the hills, Mama would apologize with kindness, hand them leftover bread or cold soup from earlier in the day, but she would not light her fire. Not for kings, not for gold, not even for the high priest of Igbara, who once begged her to prepare a feast during an unexpected night visit. The spirits eat first after dark, she once said. I will not fight them for the pot. People speculated about the origin of the rule. Some said she once lost someone to a midnight cooking accident. Others whispered she had cooked for a demon and barely escaped with her soul. But only Mama Ede knew the truth, and it weighed on her heavier than iron. She was a woman of middle age, with skin the deep brown of roasted kola and eyes sharp as a hawk's. Her hands were wide, her knuckles thick from years of pounding yam and stirring stews. Her voice held both comfort and command. Children feared her in the way they feared fire, warm and helpful, but never to be mishandled. Every morning, she would rise before the cock crow, sweep the compound and offer libations to the small shrine near her kitchen. The shrine was made of stone and clay, with 3 carved wooden faces, each representing one of the cooking spirits: Agbani, flavor, Idu, fire, and Nyare, smoke. She would whisper to them in a tongue older than memory, pour palm wine at their feet, and begin her day. And every evening, as the last lights blared from the sky, she would cover her pots, seal her ingredients in calabashes, and dose her fire with ashes scented by dry leaves. She would lock her pantry, secure her herbs, and disappear into her hut with the swiftness of someone closing a door on danger. It was during the 3rd market week of the rainy season that the first woman appeared. A bowl of egusi soup Mama had prepared, curdled for no reason. The oil separated, the scent turned sour, and the thin black worm floated to the top. She used fresh ingredients, stirred clockwise as tradition demanded, and yet the food had spoiled within minutes. She dumped the entire bowl into the earth and murmured a prayer. The next day, the village gossip, Mama Nkechi, claimed she saw a woman dressed in all black standing by Mama Ede's fence at twilight, not moving, not speaking, just watching. I called out, Mama Nkechi said later, fanning herself with urgency, but the woman didn't turn. No, she vanished before my second blink. Mama Ede said nothing when the story reached her. But that evening, she burned dried bitter leaf at her shrine and left a second offering of alligator pepper and dried crayfish beside the spirit's mouth. By the end of the week, the entire village smelled of rain. Thunder crackled through the afternoons and frogs sang through the night. Still, Mama Ede cooked, morning after morning. Her meals fed the old and the young, the grieving and the joyful. But the feeling in her bones, that itch behind the soul that warned of things coming, grew stronger. Then on the 5th night of the storm, she arrived. The wind howled so loud it drowned the frogs. Thunder rolled across the footsteps like drums of war. Inside her hut, Mama Ede sat cross-legged by her uplift fire pit, humming an old tune. She had already covered her pots, wiped her hands with hot water, and locked her pantry. She was done for the day. So when the knock came, 3 sharp raps on her front gate, she froze. No one visited after dark. She waited. Another knock. After dark, she whispered to herself, or could it be the children? Reluctantly, she rose, wrapped her wrapper tighter around her waist, and stepped into the rain. The lantern at her door flickered as she opened the small slit in the gate. There stood a woman, tall, drenched, dressed head to toe in black, though not a speck of mud clung to her. A grand black gele wrapped her head in towering folds. Her face was lined with age, but her eyes burned like coals that remembered every fire they've ever seen. "Good evening, Mama," the woman said. "I am hungry." "I don't serve food after dark," Mama Ede replied. "I know," said the woman, smiling slightly, "but you will tonight, for me." I said no. There are rules. The woman took a step forward. "You are the only one who can prepare the meal I require. You cook with memory. You cook with soul." Mama Ede's throat dried. "Who are you?" The woman's gele shimmered in the shining lantern light. "I am the one you promised to cook for long ago. The one you left behind." Something cold pressed into Mama Ede's chest. "You were not meant to return," Mama Ede whispered. "No, but neither were you meant to forget." She should have shut the slit. She should have poured salt over her doorstep. But that voice inside her, ancient and unrelenting, whispered again, "Cook, child." "I have yam," she said, "and bitter leaf. I can make pottage." "Perfect," the woman replied. "Let the fire speak." Mama Ede lit the fire, and the flames seemed to bend towards the woman as if greeting an old friend. She peeled yam slowly, washed the leaves 3 times, and stirred with her whole body, tense. Her fingers shook, but she cooked. The woman sat cross-legged by the door, gele unmoved by the wind. She said nothing. The fire hissed, but the rain had stopped. When the dish was done, Mama served it in a black bowl. The woman ate slowly. Every bite seemed to echo with memory. Then she set the spoon down. "You cook with memory," she said. "Not hands." Mama said nothing. "I came not just for a meal," the woman continued. "I came for a soul." She drew a small leather pouch and dropped 3 black seeds into Mama Ede's palm. "These," she said, "must be cooked with oil of silence and pepper from the edge of sorrow." "For what?" Mama asked. "For you." Mama blinked. "You broke the rules of life once," said the woman. "You cooked for a dying girl and gave her another breath. That girl was me. But I was not meant to live again. You owe a dish to return me to the other side." Mama's knees buckled slightly. "I saved you." "You postponed me," the woman replied. Now the spirit hunger for balance. Mama Ede closed her fingers around the seeds. "I won't." "You already have," said the woman, standing. "Finish what you started, or they will finish it for you." She stepped into the mist. Mama stood trembling, the seeds digging into her skin. Behind her, the pulse still steamed. Inside the kitchen, the wooden spirit's masks cracked open. And from the corners of the room, the voices of the forgotten began to whisper again. The seeds lay in her palm long after the woman had vanished. They were unlike anything Mama Ede had seen in her long years. Black as coal, with a thin red vein pulsing faintly around each shell, like the outline of a heart that refused to rest. She did not know where they came from, but her spirit recognized their weight. These were not seeds of life, they were seeds of return, of undoing. Mama poured them into a small calabash, covered it with a red cloth, and placed it inside the shrine at the back of her kitchen. Then she lit a fresh bundle of incense and sat before the 3 wooden faces. "Agbani, Idu, Nyari," she whispered, naming the spirits of flavor, fire, and smoke. "You have seen what came to my door. You know what she asked. Speak of if I should refuse." But the faces did not crack, the incense did not twist, and the fire did not flicker. Silence. That was answer enough. The next morning, Mama Ede left her compound before the cock crowed. She carried a worn leather sachet over one shoulder and wrapped a white scarf around her head. Her journey took her beyond the village and deep into the paths where the trees whispered secrets and time itself slowed. She had 3 ingredients to find. First, the oil of silence. She walked until she reached the hill of listening, a steep rise where no bird sang and even insects held their breath. At the summit stood an ancient tree, withered, leafless, and covered in markings so old that even the elders had forgotten their meaning. She placed a small clay pot beneath a knot in the dark and waited. After an hour, the pot filled with thick, clear oil that dripped from the tree without a sound. She sealed it and whispered thanks to the wind. Next, the pepper from the edge of sorrow. This took her to the old woman by the river, the one who wept without stopping, day or night. No one knew her name, no one remembered when she arrived. Her hut was a skeleton of wood and ash, and her tears watered a garden of red peppers that burned hotter than the sun. Mama knelt beside her and offered a bag of salt and a prayer. The woman said nothing, just nodded and pointed. Mama plucked 3 peppers, careful not to touch them with bare hands. They pulsated with heat and grief. One burst slightly in her hand, and the scent broke back in memory of her mother's funeral, the sharp ache of the loss buried in spice. Finally, she returned home. The sun was high, but she felt colder than before. She placed the oil, the peppers, and the seeds on her cooking table. Then she sat in silence. For 2 days, she did not cook, not for others and not for herself. The villagers knocked. Some asked if she was ill. Others whispered that the spirit has come to take her. Mama Ede only nodded and turned them away. She spent her time preparing her kitchen, not for good, but for ritual. She swept the floor with leaves from the iroko tree. She boiled water and let it cool without use. She sharpened her old knife and lit her old clay stove. Each night, the shadows in her kitchen grew longer. Each night, the wooden faces in her shrine wept black sap. On the 3rd night, she heard the Gele woman's voice again, this time from the firewood pile. Have you prepared the dish? Not yet, Mama whispered. You delay what is old. I remember what I gave you, Mama said, and I remember why. The voice softened. You fed me when I had no time left. You defied the spirits for love, but love must bow to balance. I know. Then cook. She began before midnight. The oil of silence was poured first, thick, scentless, gleaming. It did not hiss in the fire. It simply sat, waiting. She added the sorrow peppers, one by one. Each time, the fire dimmed. Her eyes burned with memories, not hers, but the woman's, a childhood illness, a mother's will, a grave dug too early, a girl left behind, her soul clinging to a bowl of warm pottage like it was salvation. Last, she took the black seeds. Her hands shook. She crushed them slowly in her mortar. They cracked with tiny cries like baby birds being smothered. The paste that formed was deep red. She added it to the pot. As the stew bubbled, the air changed. The windows wept. The walls breathed. Mama Ede stood back. In the doorway, she stood, the woman in the gele. No longer wet, no longer old. Her face was calm. Her eyes were no longer burning. Is it ready? She asked. It is. Then serve it. Mama poured the stew into a bowl shaped like a coffin. The woman took it in her hands, bowed and drank. She faded slowly, like mist leaving a river at sunrise. As she vanished, she whispered, "Thank you for the life you gave and for the death you honored." Mama Ede stood alone in her kitchen. The fire burned low. The pot was empty, and from the shrine behind her, the wooden faces cracked open and began to hum. Not in warning, but in peace. The days that followed were quiet, not with fear, but with a kind of sacred stillness. Mama Ede continued to cook, but something had changed. The villagers who once came just for taste now arrived with reverence. They brought offerings, small carvings, folded prayers, salt wrapped in palm leaves. They no longer asked for extra meat or spice. They asked for peace, for dreams without voices, for ancestors who stopped knocking at their doors. Mama Ede gave them what she could. Each morning she lit her fire, hummed her grandmother's songs, and stirred her pots with care. But by nightfall, she did not cook. Not anymore. The ritual had shifted her fires, and her fires belonged to the daylight, until the final night came. It was just before dawn, when stars hung heavy like tired watchers, that the knock came again. 3 soft taps. Then silence. Mama Ede was already awake, sitting by the hearth, waiting. She rose, wrapped her faded wrapper, and stepped out. There at the edge of a compound stood a small figure. A girl, not more than 12, skin the color of cold embers, her hair twisted into neat rolls, a small gele tied on her head, oversized and crooked. "I'm hungry," the girl said. Mama tilted her head. "Do you know what time it is?" The girl nodded. "Before the sun, after everything else." Mama's lips parted, but no words came. She stepped aside and the girl entered. They cooked together. The girl peeled yam slowly and carefully. Mama stirred oil that shimmered like glass. They did not speak of spirits or death or balance. They spoke of flavors, of salt that tasted like ocean wind, of pepper that made your ears ring with memories, of stew that reminded you of the mother you never knew. When the dish was done, they sat together and ate from the same bowl, one spoonful at a time, one story at a time. When the sun finally crept into the sky, golden and soft, Mama Ede looked at the girl. "What is your name?" she asked. The girl wiped her chin, smiled. "Mama Ede." Mama blinked, and then she understood. Later the villagers came. They found the compound calm, the fire still warm, the pots clean. Mama Ede was not there, but in her place stood the girl, stirring a pot slowly, humming softly. She turned, greeted them with the same eyes, the same knowing. "Welcome," she said. "What do you need?" They stammered, whispered, cried. She only smiled. "Then sit and eat." And so the story began.